I'm Michelle, and we're going to talk about how I and you can use mindfulness, compassion, and connection to find your inner calm and a little more sanity in your parenting. Hi, I'm Michelle. Is gaming a constant fight in your home? Today, we're going to talk about 3 tools to fight less over gaming. So, just to let you know, the registration for my signature course, Yelling to Connecting, is now open this week only. We're going to dive into what's happening inside of you when you get hijacked and by your big emotions in your parenting and lose your balance and calm. And we're going to talk about how to regain your footing so you can parent calmly with intention in every area of your parenting, including gaming. And we'd love to have you. So go over to compassionateheartmindfullife.com or check the show notes for the link. So, on to today's show. I'm Michelle, and I help parents who want to parent peacefully to foster strong relationships with their children and at times find it really, really hard. When my kids were small, I found myself so overwhelmed and burnt out. Not only did I struggle with responding peacefully or playfully, I found myself in an overwhelming yelling pattern, followed by, of course, terrible shame because yelling was the last thing that I wanted to do. So now let's talk about how I and you can use the science of mindfulness and self-compassion to find your inner calm and a little more sanity in your parenting. Gaming. Screens, as if screens weren't already more difficult enough. Gaming is like another level. So today we're going to go through 3 tools to fight less over gaming. And I don't know, for years now, I've been worried about my son's gaming and just in general. Of course, I'm always concerned about my kids' screen time, how much is too much. Of course, for them, no matter how much they have, it's never enough. So I feel guilty because they're the weird kids who aren't getting enough screen time, or I feel guilty because I've let them have screen time and it always feels like too much. Either way, I can't win. I'm sure that many of you can relate. So my son has a favorite game, Brawl Stars. He eats, sleeps, and drinks Brawl Stars. It's all he wants to think about or talk about or do. And like I said, been concerned about screens, and there's so many fears about, what happens if they're on screens too much? What happens if they get pulled into gaming? And I knew that my fears weren't particularly helping when it came to setting limits around gaming, or responding to my kids' upsets about when to turn it off because it fueled my reactivity. So it wasn't helping me. The reality is that fear affects our nervous system, i.e., it makes you more likely to yell, become controlling, or be reactive. And it's really normal for us as parents to have a lot of fears when it comes to screens and gaming. So when we're in the future, like all those worried thoughts, we lose access to curiosity and calm, such as, why is this gaming so important to my son or daughter? Like on a really like personal level, like why is it important to them? What makes it important to them? Like really genuine curiosity. Fear, who cares why it's important to them? I just want them to stop, right? That's what fear says. Also, fear causes us to lose perspective. Like we forget that maybe our kiddo is kind of okay in many other ways. They're doing great here, they're doing okay over there. When we get hijacked by fear, it feels like everything's terrible, everything's going to be terrible. It just causes us to completely lose perspective. So in my one of my parenting groups, when the book How to Raise a Healthy Gamer, End Power Struggles and Break Bad Screen Habits and Transform Your Relationship with Your Kids, when this book came up, I was like, yes, I have to read it. First of all, healthy gamer, is that an oxymoron? Is that even possible to be healthy and a gamer? I'm not sure. But I was curious. And this book is by Alok Kanojiha, an American psychiatrist. And I love that he shares his own personal story. So when he was in school and he nearly failed and flunked out of school, his parents pulled him out of school, and because he's Indian, they sent him to an ashram in India, and he learned a lot from that experience. He came back to the United States, and then he saw that in the mental health field, there was a huge gap that people didn't. I mean, gaming is moving so fast that a lot of the people that were, psychiatrists and psychologists and therapists didn't really have the knowledge of what was really happening, or had no personal experience, except maybe they had their own kid at home that they're worried about. So he wrote this book, and he also has a website and a whole bunch of resources. So check them out. And the main points that really stood out to me from the book is that he gave a detailed explanation about how gaming impacts our kids' brains and why the games are so compelling. And this really helps build compassion, right? Because again, fear is like, it's bad, just turn it off. But if we don't understand what's happening for our kids, why the game is like a magnet that they just feel pulled towards it. If we don't understand what needs it's meeting, then we just come in with a heavy hand, which often doesn't work very well and kind of blows up in our face, right? So it was so helpful to learn about all of the specific impacts that gaming has on our brains. Particularly, it helps our kiddos escape from other stressors. And it has just enough challenge and reward that you can always feel successful. Whereas real life is often much more challenge than reward, right? So, and of course, these gaming developers have studied the psychology behind this, and they're using it really effectively. And that's why these games are so compelling for our kids. Also, he explains that the number one thing we can do to support our kids and help them kind of be resourced when it comes to and have resilience so they don't get totally sucked into gaming where it becomes a completely problematic in their life is to have a relationship with our child. And he also lets us know we need to have a relationship with our child first before we come in and start to implement all these things boundaries around gaming, all this stuff. He very much says focus on the relationship first, which of course spoke to me because I'm all about relationships with our children first. So he also explains don't come in with harsh limits. Our kids are gonna shut down and they're gonna shut you out, and don't enable. If they stay up all night gaming and they aren't prepared for their test, don't send the teacher an email and, try to I don't know, cushion the blow. Let them experience that failure so that they see there's consequences for their actions, which of course can be really hard for us as parents because we don't want some terrible thing to happen, but we are then taking away natural consequences that our children need to have when they have stayed up too late, gamed too much, missed an assignment, whatever it is. Another point is who is more at the kids that are more at risk. So kids with high anxiety or anxiety in general, depression, kids that need an escape. Maybe they don't feel like they fit in for whatever reason, neurodivergent kids, there's lots of different kind of kids that could fall into this category, right? But real life is pretty hard, has a lot of obstacles, and the game provides this amazing escape where they can be successful and experience being respected and doing well and all these positive things. And so, of course, if real life is hard because they have real life challenges because of whatever it is that they have going on, then of course the game is going to be that much more compelling. So I don't think games equally impact all kids. Not all kids get sucked into games and have a harder time turning it off. Some kids do, and some kids don't. Um, so, some practical ideas that the book provides is to just have the gaming system in the family room instead of in the bedroom, because in the bedroom, you're less likely to know what's going on, the conversations that are happening, who your kiddo might be talking to on their gaming system, and also they're more likely to play much more. And I thought, well, that's pretty simple and practical, duh, right? But we don't, I mean, it's hard, like, because it seems like, yeah, let's put that in your room. But when you hear the explanations of why it's helpful to have it in the family room, it's very motivating to either not ever have it in the bedroom to begin with or to move it to the family room. And the book also mentions what happens when we're parenting from fear and responding to gaming concerns from a place of fear. And this, I think, really spoke to me because I knew that I was responding from a place of fear. And I want to dive deeper into this. The book goes into all these really helpful things. There's not a lot of time to also go into, well, what happens if you as a parent know you're filled with fear and cannot turn that fear off and know that it is, yes, causing big problems in how you're responding to the gaming. So, that even if we are saying that things are like we're saying all the right things to our kiddo when it comes to the gaming, if we're fearful inside that our kiddo can pick up on this, they need to know that we feel comfortable and confident inside. And so even sometimes when we can fake it, our kids can still like read between the lines. And even more problematic, we're much more likely to be controlling, yell, be harsh or reactive, which our kids are not going to respond well to. And if the number one thing that we can do for our kids to help them not have gaming become problematic is have a strong relationship with them, controlling, yelling, harsh, reactive parenting all harms that relationship, right? So we really have to focus on our fears so that we do not get caught up in these reactive things. So again, what if fears dry? Like, okay, that's great, Michelle. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or maybe you've already read the book and you're like, yes, I loved it, but I know I'm still filled with fear and I still can't turn it off. So now what? I'm with you. I'm very much with you. So here are 5 tools that you can use to help you with your fear because perhaps you know that it is a struggle. So, and again, these are 100% reasonable fears that you have. One is talk to someone. Do not try to do this alone. I can't express enough how valuable it is to get support. We are not we're mammals. We are wired for connection. We're not meant to do this parenting thing alone, do specific challenging parenting things alone. So get to support, talk to a therapist, maybe a hand-in-hand parenting coach, a friend. And you don't need advice. You don't need someone to add to your fears. Oh, yeah, that is terrible. You really should be worried. If that's what you're anybody in your life, it could be even a therapist, is saying, you can maybe you calibrate who you're talking to or talk to someone else. If a friend is saying that, you turn to your parent and they're responding to you that way. I mean, it's pretty reasonable that oftentimes we share our fear and people match fear with fear, but that's not helpful to us, right? So we really need to talk to someone who is grounded, who can listen and help us process our fears without adding on or giving advice, which isn't necessarily helpful. If you don't have someone like that in your life, of course, I encourage you to reach out and connect with someone like that. But in the meantime, you can always journal. And journaling is helpful to also process the fears that we have. So, what am I afraid that this means about me or my child? Get really curious. What am I afraid that this gaming means maybe about me as a parent, about my parenting? If I just found out, I looked at my screen time and my kid was on the thing for 3 hours or 8 hours, oh my gosh, what kind of things am I worried that says about me as a parent? What kind of things am I worried that that means about my child? You might finish the statement. I am terrified if my child keeps gaming this way. What? What are you terrified is going to happen? Oftentimes we go to worst case scenario. That's what our fear is there for, to try to help prevent the worst case scenario. But as I have already illustrated, those thoughts are not always helpful. So, what are you most terrified could happen? Write the fears out. And you might need to do this more than once, again and again and again. And then balance the fears with some truths. So, what are some positive qualities that you see in your child? Maybe they have a lot of really great friendships. Maybe they try really hard in school. Maybe they're making good grades. Maybe they have another hobby outside of gaming that's a really great, healthy hobby that you're really glad that they're interested in. When we balance out the fears, it kind of helps turn the volume down on the fears. Fears narrow our thinking. We have to intentionally expand our thinking to remind ourselves, okay, hold on a second. This isn't my whole child. What are some other things about my child that will help kind of help us with those fears? So number two is manage your nervous system first. How are you doing in general? Like, what's happening in your life? How are your stress levels? How is your mood? Maybe there's things happening in your life that are really stressful and upsetting, and you're really struggling. Maybe you're feeling anxious or having difficult moods. Like, all of those things are, one, of course, reasonable. You're human. You're like gonna feel things and experience difficult times as well. And when we are struggling, it makes it that much harder to manage our fears. It makes it that much like our fears just have it's like wildfire. Like it's much easier for them to take hold and like run away to catastrophic thinking. So when we can focus on ourselves and give ourselves whatever support we might need for whatever's happening in our life, that will benefit us when it comes to responding to our kids and their gaming. Number three, focus on your relationship with your child. So, what can you do that's fun together? Maybe just do anything fun together. And you're not allowed during this fun time to talk about their gaming or to talk about how they should be gaming less or to talk about their school or things that are like, all the things that we're thinking about as parents that they probably don't want to talk about and that probably they're not going to be super, like it's not that you can't talk about those things, but at a separate time, carving out a time that's just fun, just playful, just silly. It could be that you play basketball together, you could play chess together, you could read together. It doesn't matter what you do, something that is quality time together. And it's okay sometimes if I've had to do this with my kids that you kind of have to force it a little like, well, you say, hey, do you want to go play basketball? And they're like, no, I don't want to do that. You're like, okay, well, I'm going to hang out with you for 20 minutes. So I can just sit here with you, but I'd really rather do something like more fun. So is there anything you can think of? And kind of like you're pressing into their world, especially with preteens and teens. They're not going to always be super receptive. So you have to kind of say, hey, I'm here and I'm going to spend time with you. Hopefully it'll be fun. And again, focusing on not talking, not lecturing, not bringing up difficult topics, not talking about stuff that they don't want to talk about, just having relaxed, joyful, fun times together. And number four, a grounding practice that you can use to respond to your child before you have to like go and talk to them about gaming, or maybe it's time to turn off the game or whatever it is. So, first off, take a moment, take a deep breath, and acknowledge that maybe there's some fear present for you. So, it might sound like, I'm afraid that I'm really am afraid about my son's game use. I have lots of fears about it. I am really scared. Great. You're just acknowledging that those fears are there. The more you acknowledge them, the less they like hijack you without your consent. And then remind yourself some comforting truths. And we have a good relationship, or I'm working on strengthening my relationship with my kiddo. Um, you might say something else that it's a comforting statement about them, such as, my kiddo has a lot of good friends. My kiddo's doing well in school. So, something comforting. You acknowledge how you're feeling, then you say something comforting to yourself. And finally, trying to stay calm and follow through calmly will reminding yourself that this will help keep your relationship strong. If I come to him calmly, he's going to know I love him and care about him, and that I'm going to follow through with having healthy gaming boundaries in our house, and that yelling, losing it, threatening, and controlling is going to have the opposite impact. When we consciously remind ourselves before we go to our kiddo, it will help to keep those things from happening. And last but not least, of course, read the book. If you haven't already, How to Raise a Healthy Gamer, End Power Struggles, Break Bad Scream Habits, and Transform Your Relationship with Your Kids. I found it to be a really helpful read. It provides really good information without adding to fears. I do not like when books or any kind of information kind of tries to terrify us into doing the right thing, right? I don't want to be, I'm already afraid enough. I just want good information and good tools, not extra fear, not helpful. This knowledge always, generally, I think almost always helps with our compassion, helps with our understanding, and it helps keep us motivated to keep going, especially in the face of the tech tidal wave, right? This sort of like constant, ongoing screen time gaming battles that feel like they're ever present and becoming, more of a struggle. In conclusion, when our fears are running the show, it doesn't serve us. It hijacks us and makes it 1,000 times more difficult to remain calm, open, and balanced with our kiddo. And again, before you jump off and go into your day, the registration for Yelling to Connecting, my signature course for the February cohort, is now open this week only. We are going to dive into what's happening inside of you and your parenting and what hijacks your balance and your calm and how to regain your footing so you can parent calmly with intention in every area of your life, including gaming, if that's something that's important to you in your home. And of course, we'd love to have you. So go to compassionateheartmindfullife.com and find it there, or go to the links in the show notes and find it there. The light in me sees the light in you. Be well. Thank you so much for listening. A reminder, this content is intended for educational purposes only and should not be used as a replacement for private psychotherapy services. Compassionate Heart Mindful Life does not provide psychotherapy services in any capacity. I am a therapist, but I'm not your therapist, and this is not therapy and should not be a substitute for mental health treatment. If you need mental health treatment, please find a qualified professional in your area. Thanks again for listening.